All right, welcome everybody back to Making Sense episode. I always forget what episode it is. I think 5 for this one. We've recorded them. I just announced today the actual launch of the podcast. So we are officially now, as of 10/2, available at Spotify and YouTube, I think. So today, I've got a very special guest in Jordan Nathan, the founder and CEO of Caraway, which makes beautiful pans. Well, it's not just pans, cookware. I was thinking like kitchenware, pans. Jordan, what's like the overarching umbrella term, I guess? What's like, is it home goods, cookware? I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah, I'd say today we're more home goods, but
Okay.
definitely trying to expand the portfolio. So we've got everything from cookware, bakeware, food storage, knives and utensils, and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot more coming.
Fantastic. Okay. So I purchased Caraway cookware set probably in like February or March. I absolutely love it. And then Jordan, I think you DM'd me a few months ago just about I forget exactly what it was. But like hit me up and I was like, wow. There's so many cool people like Jordan that have been sort of reaching out ever since I started creating content. So I really wanted to bring him onto the pod to talk about a few things, specifically just around the category and sort of the outlook for it and his experience sort of building the brand. So Jordan, I would love if you would just start off with giving us a little bit of a background on yourself and how Caraway got started and maybe a little bit about the journey so far.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on. So yeah, I've always been a I guess entrepreneur. Always wanted to start something. I actually tried to start my first company right out of college. It was a e-commerce marketplace, was building for D2C brands.
Okay.
Back 10, 15 years, nobody wanted to sell on Amazon and felt there was maybe a need for like a, marketplace for D2C brands, and did that for a couple of years, couldn't raise the funds I needed, and then moved on to a company called Mohawk Group, which was really the first like Amazon brand holding company. So they owned 4 different brands, and
Yeah.
I was brought in to run Vremi, which was their kitchen brand. So kind of got
Okay.
thrown into the kitchen space. Had the fortunate opportunity to essentially like restart the brand from scratch. So I ended up launching something like 200 products in my first 24 months there. Spent a lot of time traveling the world, going to factories. Once we got the products here, we needed to figure out how to sell them. And so learned kind of digital marketing.
Yeah.
They all sold out. So then needed to learn forecasting and really got the chance to kind of run my own brand under another umbrella. And this was way back in like 2016, 2017 during kind of
Yeah.
the earlier days of Amazon. So learned a lot of those old kind of like gray or black hat tactics. And, we did a bit of kind of Facebook ads and stuff, but more kind of Amazon focused. And
Yeah, Mohawk Group was or yeah, they're like are they public?
they are. So they rebranded. They're called Atarian now.
Okay.
And when I was there, we were just building brands. I think they've started to acquire some similar to like Thrasio and all those.
And there was like something unique about like I think I'm recalling this correctly. Like their supply chain was like especially profound or something. Am I making that up?
Um, we kind of built an internal, like very early version of like an AI software that helped
Yeah,
like
yeah.
identify
Okay.
opportunities on Amazon for what products to launch. So
Okay.
also played a little bit of a role in that, but I was more on the brand side.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. And so then Remy comes out of Mohawk Group? Or keep going.
Yeah. So was there for 2 years, built up the brand to, 8 figures, was scaling well, launched all these categories, and um kind of started getting the itch to start something new. And kind of all my time while being at Remy, we were selling a lot of cheaper products on Amazon, and where we were really winning was through color. And I think as a consumer who wanted to create a strong brand, I was watching, Harry's and Warby Parker, and we just were
Yeah.
so focused on Amazon. I felt like there was a bigger opportunity around creating better designed products. And I had the experience to really launch a lot of items, and kind of through that, I witnessed a lot of just poor materials, bad manufacturing
Yeah.
processes, and I had a pretty scary experience with a Teflon pan test going wrong, where Actually overheated a Teflon pan accidentally. Got sick from the fumes from the test and actually got Teflon flu.
Oh.
And kind of coming out of that experience, started diving more into cookware materials, found out how dangerous Teflon was, and we were selling plenty of Teflon products on Amazon, and
Mhm.
really felt like there was an opportunity to kind of marry design with safer materials. And kind of 2.5 years into Mohawk, decided to take the leap and start Caraway.
So I guess I don't know too much about Teflon. What is like Teflon flu? How does that happen?
Yeah, so Teflon, I think it was created back in the 1930s initially with
Okay.
like I think it was the atom bomb when it was like introduced into
Oh,
um
perfect.
to
Yeah,
the
put it on the
world
put it on the
in like the
cookware.
1970s, got commercialized, and cookware was really the first product it was put on. The great thing about Teflon is it's super nonstick. And so while like cookware is one of its primary use cases, Teflon's on raincoats, it's in, beauty products, carpets. It's a great stain resistant product, but
Yeah.
there's been many studies over the years showing how toxic it is. And, it's not just ingesting it, but any runoff of Teflon into the water, they're called forever chemicals. So they actually can't be broken down once made.
Oh,
And
sweet.
this is really what people have been cooking off for decades. And it's really not something we should be consuming. And Teflon flu is when you get overexposure to Teflon, so, like, overheating a pan. All that happens is you get sick and you're nauseous and have a headache. Think about, walking
Oh,
into, like, a freshly painted room. Um,
yeah.
it's really all the micro exposures cooking off of it over, 10, 20,
Okay.
30 years where it gets really dangerous.
So this is on the trend of like better for you. I honestly bought them just because I knew the brand and I thought they looked cool, and I needed some new pants. I didn't realize it was like healthier. Is that like a core part of your like messaging and stuff?
It is. We've always built the brand around non-toxic. I like to think about like our design as our marketing vehicle and,
Okay.
helps us maybe arbitrage marketing spend. That's really what draws people in. But
Yeah.
every kind of post-purchase survey we run, like no matter what, non-toxic's always the top reason customers are buying. And so, I'd like to say we knew that was like the silver bullet when we launched the brand, and that was going to be what people, really resonated
Yeah.
with. Over time, we've started investing more into kind of non-toxic and what that means for the brand.
Okay. Okay. So the year's 2018. You just spent a few years at Mohawk Group. They threw you into the kitchen stuff. You decide to start Caraway. Do you have any co-founders?
I do not.
Solo. Wow, that's yeah, I always wonder, like, how people do that. Like, the one thing that a co-founder is, like, great for is just, like it's such a roller coaster, that, like, it's usually, like, more fun to be, like, in the with somebody else, but how is
Yeah,
how is,
I don't know.
how's
I
that
kind of
been?
like left Mohawk and was just I just built
Sell
a
some pans,
fundraising
yeah.
deck and went for it. I would be nice to have a co-founder, but um yeah, I don't know that I do well with one, but my wife is a therapist, so
Oh,
that is
perfect, yeah.
that is
That actually
helpful.
works out, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you built a fundraising deck. Did you guys, like, raise money to get started, or take me through sort of, like, the 0 to 1, 1 to 10 experience?
Yeah, so I think I left Mohawk in July of 2018. And first thing I did was I had a network of factories. So I actually started developing the product with kind of off shelf designs,
Okay.
really to validate the coding and kind of design direction. And I think I built a deck in the first 30 days and just started kind of raising with essentially a deck, no product, no branding. And um, I think the tough thing about the category we're in is unlike maybe like clothing or supplements, where I think like the costs of the products are a lot cheaper.
Right.
Um, they're expensive tooling costs, the inventory
Yeah,
batches,
it's real startup costs.
high MOQs. And so
Yeah.
there was no way to like get this off the ground with my own personal investment. And so my first round took 10 months to raise. I brought in over 100
Whoa.
investors. I think we raised 1.8 total. And it was just hitting the pavement every single day. I was walking around New York City with pans and Lululemon bags, and probably doing like 6 to 8 pitches a day. And I got the first few hundred K in, and once that came in, I put that into the product development, the branding, and kind of as the brand was built, maybe folks that I met earlier who passed kind of saw the progress and
Yeah.
were able to scrap together, a little over 1.5 million. And I think probably really challenging for us was all of our D2C competitors raised before us, and we were last to market. So
Oh, you
there's
were? Okay, I didn't realize
there's
that.
so many funds and investors who basically made their cookware choice already, and it made it super, super challenging to raise that round.
So there was no, like, institutional money in that first round?
We had like two small VCs maybe put in like a 50K check.
Oh, wow.
Um, so all angels. I think if you do the math, it was like an average of a 25K check.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's funny that, like, it reminds me of, what have you ever heard Jeff Bezos talk about, like, the first Amazon
yeah,
fundraise where he's like yeah, it was like 20K average or something? Okay, so you pull it off. You get 100 people to give you 1.8 million, start to put it into product development, and then you guys launch D2C proper is, like, sort of like the first channel?
yeah. So we launched November 2019. We actually didn't have product. We had like a 30-day like pre-sale.
Okay.
We had a disaster. Happy to talk about it with the first inventory batch that we had to
Let's
work
do it, yeah,
through.
come on, tell me about the disaster, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, so we launched November 2019, and I think our first order was like 5 or 6 thousand cookware sets. We just
Okay.
launched the cookware. We just launched with sets. It came in 6 colors, and essentially the like internals of the packaging failed. So we ordered like 50 sets ahead of time to come for press samples. And like FedEx showed up to our office and they brought in all these boxes, and you could hear all this like clanging and metal hitting each other. And we opened all the boxes, and
Sweet.
essentially like the internal structure broke down. Every single piece in the boxes were scratched up, dented, and fortunately we got these earlier for press. So when the actual units got to the warehouse, we all went to the warehouse and we had to repack 5 to 6 thousand units. And we ended up having to we probably sh I think we shipped our first unit to a customer like 28 days after launch, which was actually pretty incredible given
That's not bad.
we had
No,
to
that's
like
not
re
bad at all.
yeah, we had to rework everything. And I just remember, we had 3 employees at the time, and the second those, like, units came into the office, like, I could just see the look of fear in everyone's faces. They all just left their jobs, came to join a early startup. Everyone's faces were white, and I really had to hold it together, but,
You're like, "Yeah, sorry, guys."
we
Yeah.
we got it done.
That's hilarious, okay. So you pull it off, and that like you just said, I guess, before we started recording, that's, like, where most of your business comes from. So was it a pretty good launch right away?
Yeah, so, we launched in the holidays. Today, we do half our business in the holidays, and so, it was a great time to launch. We had actually built a 150,000 person wait list prior to launch.
Oh,
So we
what?
had
How?
like
What? How'd you do that?
very early on I started hosting like product giveaways with other brands. So there's a platform we use called Dojo Mojo, and
Dojo Mojo.
essentially it's a bunch of brands come together to give away like a $3,000 home refresh. And so I would kind of set up these campaigns. I'd pull in a Casper or different brands, and
Yeah, yeah.
essentially everyone would send these giveaways out to their email audiences. And if the customer wants to enter, everyone gets that email address. So we ended up doing a lot of these. We built this massive email list.
Smart.
Truthfully, most of the emails were not quality,
Yeah.
but we kind of had an initial following. I kind of brought those folks along for the R&D, so we'd share content of the progress. And when we launched, we had this nice base. We also had 100 investors to buy the product, which was awesome.
Yep, perfect. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and we had done a really good job of partnering with kind of editors and influencers ahead of time. So I think on launch day, we had like 20 to 30 press articles. We had
Nice.
100 influencers go live. And we really
Okay,
hit
so
the ground running.
you, like, knew what you were doing here. Like, this wasn't like You didn't like just kind of like let it fly. Like you planned for all this besides the inventory disaster.
Yeah, I think we made some good decisions. I think we had a lot of luck. But it didn't just go live. Like we had a legit marketing strategy, and
Yeah, yeah.
we probably turned on Facebook ads 3 to 4 weeks in, but really
Okay.
leaned on like press influencers, the email list. I remember like our fifth day in, I think we sold 0 units, and I was like, that's the last time ever we're gonna have 0 sales in a day.
Okay, so fast forward, I don't know, 6 years later, companies, your Series A backed, Series B. You've done a bunch of subsequent financings. Company's profitable. One of the leading cookware brands, home goods brands, excuse me. What do you like? What was there any like key like unlocks in scaling up? Like when I think about like this model in like D2C specifically, like the reason that it works today is because like it's so high AOV and presumably like reasonably good margin, and so you can kind of like rapidly accumulate LTV all in that like first purchase, and so like the unit economics like still work even in like a day and age where the CACs are so high. But you also launched when CACs were fairly low. I mean, I remember 2019, Mad Rabbit, my beauty company. Um, you know, I think we had like a $7 CAC at one point. And it was like I mean, you would just feed that thing. So I guess I'm just curious, like throughout your journey, like was there like one or two things that you guys like really, really did right that like kind of allow the model to scale the way that it has?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a long list. If I were to distill it to 2 or 3 things, I'd say one, we've been very thoughtful with only launching one ad channel at a time.
Okay.
I think what that's enabled us to do is really, one, make sure when we launch a channel it's successful, and then two, measure what that channel is actually doing to the business. So that's been super, super successful for us. I see a lot of brands who just launch everything at once and then you don't really know what's driving the business. So
Yeah.
I think a really like thoughtful, staggered approach. Um, I'd say too, I credit a lot of our growth to our payment terms with our factories.
Okay.
I think we've probably got some of the best terms out there, and what's that enabled us to really do is really have an unlimited amount of cash to put into marketing, where maybe we're turning it 2 or 3 times before we have to pay for the inventory.
Oh wow.
So that's been
Okay.
a huge lock unlock for us. And then, um, when I think about like our secret sauce at Caraway, I'd say it's really thoughtful long-term planning around the marketing calendar. And so, we're already planned out 24 months today. We're going out to
Wow.
2028 at this point. And
That's
I think
crazy.
one thing looking back that's gone really well is we always ensured we had something like new happening to bring awareness to the brand, whether it was, a collaboration, color drop, new product, just constant newness,
Yeah.
has really brought just, consistent eyeballs to the brand.
That's actually that was a beautiful answer. That was very well, like almost like you said that before. So thoughtfulness on marketing, relative consistency around newness, and then paired with sort of the operational, ability. How did you approach like getting those types of terms with the manufacturing partner? Was it from the beginning, or did you guys just grow so fast you were eventually
Yeah.
like,
It's funny. People always ask me this question. The answer's super simple. I learned this at my last company. We had, as mentioned, we had 200 products. I think there were like 70 factories, and so I actually got to like A/B test
wow,
like how to ask for terms. And
yeah,
um, really, the best way to do it is when you're kicking off a project. You have to ask for it at the very start in like your first email discussion with a factory. If you get further along in R&D, they've got the leverage. And so part of like your factory selection process is like, if I'm looking at 5 factory partners and only 2 or 3 are willing to accept the terms, those are the only 2 or 3 that I'm gonna work with. And it's really as simple as like asking and kind of setting expectations. So a lot of times we'll like ask for certain terms and we'll say, all right, after 3 POs, we want to be at this. After 5, we want to be at
yeah.
this. After 10, we want to be at this. Um, and finding the partners who are willing to like bet on that also, I think, has been a good recipe for success. Typically, those are factories who are willing to experiment more, take more risks. Um, and yeah, we've been lucky to have great partners who like understand how kind of cash flow impacts growth.
So there must be quite a few potential like co or manufacturing partners that you could work with. Like I remember like for us, like at Mad Rabbit, like we had like there was like one because we put like our stuff in this
Yeah.
like aluminum like bottle basically, and there was like one dude in the country basically who could like crimp it with like a machine. It was like the craziest thing ever. Like we did not have access to 70 potential partners, like not even close.
Yeah. Yeah. Within cookware, there's probably 3 to 5 like core factories in Asia. There are more, but they're on the cheaper end. So it wasn't like a huge field, but
Okay.
you know, we were able to kind of negotiate these upfront from the start. And to be honest, like the cash outlay from the factories, our POs were tiny. I'm sure they
Yeah.
didn't think much about it, at those quantities. As we've scaled, it's become more of a challenge for them to keep them, but we work with them to get them insurance or factoring or kind of whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think I guess it's kind of interesting. Like I think if I think of like what I'm trying to learn here, like the number of factories is probably directly correlated to like the overall size of the actual market. Like is that like a like if you're like how big is like the cookware home goods market?
Cookware, latest stat I've seen is like 6.5 billion. I actually think it's a little bigger, but that's kind of
That
what's
feels low, yeah.
for just cookware.
Okay.
Kitchenware as a whole, I believe, is
Oh, wow.
20 something billion in the US. If you expand to like appliances, it shoots up to like 50 to 80.
Okay. So then like the larger the TAM, presumably the more manufacturing partners are sort of like supporting that market. Or does it get concentrated? Is that a fair assumption? Am I making a fair assumption or is it like the opposite?
I think there's a lot of niches in our categories. So like they're different like you have stainless
Okay.
steel factories, cast iron, nonstick, ceramic. They all kind of do a little bit of each, but they might specialize. And then there's good, better, best in the category as well.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I'm thinking like if I was like gonna start a brand today, like what am I thinking of? Like TAM is obviously like very, top of mind, and then maybe that sort of correlates also to like being able to find a supplier who might be like more willing to extend those types of terms. I'm curious, like how you with that fact known, how did you think about like capitalizing the business over time? I think you guys have there's a couple different sources. So I don't know if you guys share exactly like the amount of money that you've raised, but like sometimes it says 30, sometimes it says 70. I've seen a couple different numbers. You don't have to share the number if you don't want to, but I'm just curious like how you thought about capitalizing over time, given the fact that you have these high AOV, good margin, nice terms. Walk me through a little bit about your thinking over time and how it's changed even.
Yeah, so we've been profitable from day one, and I think
Oh
like
wow.
a learning, and the reason this category is so great is we have a super high AOV, and we're making a first purchase profitable, or first purchase profit. And the way we kind of run the business internally is we set a ROAS number that the team can spend as much as they want over that number,
Mhm.
but so long as like we're hitting that as a floor, we're making a profit on the first purchase. So I
Yeah.
think that's one is you have that benefit. And, for us, our core products cost $445. So that's typically the entry point.
Well.
Um, so from the start, we felt like we could run the business pretty efficiently with the terms. And so we raised the 1.8 pre-seed and then another 3.5 to get to a total. I called the whole thing a seed round, which was 5.3.
Okay.
So it's kind of two tranches. And then um, we raised another 35 million in equity back in mid 2022, which was our last round.
Okay.
And that was really to fuel hiring, new product investment, marketing. But also at that time, we kind of came out of COVID. Freight costs had 5x. We didn't raise our prices, and we kind of ate those costs, and
Yeah.
kind of had a little bit of a cash crunch that we needed to solve for.
Okay. So those rounds to me, I'm curious what you think about this. Like whenever I see like a company that's like clearly got like solid fundamentals and like they go out and they raise like a 20 to 40 million dollar round, to me it's like okay, we're flipping into like business building mode and like you said like hiring and stuff and like implementing infrastructure. Like was that like mostly like what you then sort of started to do? Like before that it was like hey, we're like this thing's like, scaling, we're getting off the ground, we're going, and then you as like founder CEO kind of switch into like true like builder mode and now you have the resources to actually like create a machine. Is that kind of what was happening?
Exactly. So the first capital really bought us inventory, was used for marketing and the branding and product, and, you know, after that, we were fine for a couple of years and kinda lived off our own cash, and then, yeah, we got to the point, I mean, we crossed, you know, uh, a big revenue number with a super small team, and we
Okay.
got to a point where that just wasn't sustainable. We're now at 100 employees today. I think back in 2022, when we raised that round, maybe we were 35 or 40.
Yeah.
So we needed more team members. We needed more tech and, ERP and to,
Right, right.
professionalize the finance function. And then um, product is a big piece of Caraway, and there's a ton we've invested there, along with, marketing and retail. And so that kind of second round, and I don't know what you would call it. I guess it was a Series A, but really a growth round.
Growth
That
round,
was
yeah.
was really to help us kind of mature and operationalize the business.
So that's a good topic. I think oftentimes, founders or operators like they think that like because they've like grown so quickly and like they don't have that many employees and like they're making a ton of money. Oftentimes they'll be like, oh yeah, like, I should be able to sell this business for whatever 12x EBITDA. And it's like, no, but like you have like no like team or like no infrastructure. Like you don't even have like a data
Yeah.
store or like an ERP, like you said. What was like the hardest part of like much of professionalizing the business and like how did you think about like building enterprise value? Because like ultimately you're architecting like a machine, right? And that requires a lot of people, a lot of technology, a lot of processes, et cetera. Like what was the hardest part of like flipping that switch and becoming like a true business?
Yeah. I think the hardest impact is on like culture and the way you work. Like initially when you're smaller, and we're a fully remote company,
You're totally remote,
which
no
adds
no
another
office.
another challenging layer, no office. When you're smaller, you're much more scrappier. You don't have budgets. We didn't have any of
Yeah,
that stuff before the round, and I think over the past few years we've had to put in place budgets, processes, approval, flows. We've had to invest in more tech. And I think you need to be really cognizant of like not slowing yourself down. I think we definitely had periods where we probably over processed stuff and
yeah,
pulled it back. So that's been like a major learning and an interesting curve. But I think every business is different. For us, like we've gone very wide across products and channels. And I think one of the hardest things to support is like if you're a brand with one product and one or two channels, you actually maybe don't need a huge team. But like
yeah,
every product you add, every new like whether adding retailers or Amazon, like those all require their own efforts. And at least in our business, every product category is a hero category. So they're also like their own businesses. And it's been really hard to
yeah,
figure out like how do you support multi hero product categories across multi channels, and ensure that you also have the infrastructure to be able to support it, but also to like, is what's in place today going to work in 3 years from now? So
uh
I think like a big shift was also ensuring like every decision we make in the company is thinking through like where we're going to be in 3 years, but also how does this impact every team member? Because we're now not all in the same room. The team's bigger. Adding a
yeah.
software, adding a process has ripple effects across the whole company.
And that's like it. It becomes like we were selling at Mad Rabbit. We had like I don't know, probably like a dozen like retailers, like including like Walmart and CVS. We sold through like tattoo stores, and like I just remember, and like we were not nearly as big as you guys, but like I just remember like it becomes like I mean this is literally like why I started Iris was like it becomes such a hard data problem. Like you like not even like nobody's even looking at the same numbers at some point, and then you're like, well, how are we supposed to run this business together when like we don't even know like basically what's going on, and that's like what I think one of the biggest challenges of consumer products is like you're selling different like we had different products that did better in different channels, right? Like a numbing cream does better on Amazon because people need it faster and they need the 2-day shipping or whatever. So like you introduce like all this complexity that is very difficult, honestly, to solve for until you have everybody like kind of, and then introduce the remote layer, like you're saying, and it's like you can't even like just talk to somebody at the office kind of a thing. Oh man, like I mean, it's what makes it, like, so impressive. I think, um, you know, what do you think was, like, the most critical, part of, like, being able to get there? Was it the right product at the right time? Was it launching D2C first in a time where, economics worked really well? Like, what do you think was the most perfect, right thing that you did? Am I asking this well? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Um, I think it was setting up the company to be financially successful from the start.
We're very profit focused.
Yeah, we've always. I think we've been a frugal company, but knowing when to like pull the right lever. I think we've. If I were to go back, I would have priced higher.
Okay.
But I do think we priced well enough to be able to be profitable in the first purchase, and I think that discipline has really, enabled us to grow. And you know, uh, some months we're able to acquire more customers, some months less. But I think sticking to that like ROAS target that we have has been
Mhm.
super helpful. And then I'd also say like diversification of product portfolio. Our second product we didn't launch until 2 years after cookware, which was bakeware. And I think there have been points in our history where we launched too many products too quickly, and some of those products in those like compact time periods didn't take off as much as we wanted. But
Yeah.
just like building a stock portfolio, I think the diversification has been really important. There have been different times throughout the past 5 years where certain products have trended across different channels. And I think what I love about the business is in a perfect world, everything's like up and to the right at once. But there have been
Yeah.
some years where D2C or Amazon have been slower and retail has been faster, vice
Mhm.
versa. Some years where cookware was slower, but bakeware was doing better. And that's really helped us like hedge against, I think what a lot of brands run into is when you have like one product on one channel or one product across multi, like
Yeah.
the lack of diversification, really ends up impacting you.
And I think it's a good point because, like, a lot of times, like, I'll talk to people that are, like, sort of, like, in their, like, hyper growth phase, and, like, when that like, nobody ever thinks it's gonna stop. And, like, sometimes you, like, don't grow month over month, and, like, that's okay in consumer, like, and, like, people like, I'll see people, like, just try to hold on at the expense of, like, literally, like, their cash, to, like, hold on to this, like, month over month, year over year, growth at all costs, basically kind of a mindset, which obviously got, like, totally washed out, like, a couple of years ago, honestly, like, like, nobody does that anymore. I mean, you guys were sort of profit focused from the beginning, which probably puts you a bit ahead of the curve, which is, like, why you're here today. But I guess, from, like, a sort of capital market perspective, like, where do you see the goalpost kind of heading, whether your category or just broadly? Like, obviously, like, we just got a rate cut. There's been, like, a bunch of big M&A in consumer, specifically, like, food and beverage and stuff. Like, how are you thinking about sort of, creating value over the next, call it, like, 2 to 4 years in terms of, like, where Caraway could actually go? Like, is it retail expansion? Is it more products? Tell us a little bit about, like, the roadmap.
Yeah, I think for us it's really uh going wider. So our like R&D roadmap goes out, I think, to 2030 at this point. We're not kidding. Like we have a lot of R&D we're doing, and um we're not
Is that
international.
expensive?
Is it expensive?
Like, are you spending a lot on it?
It's actually a much smaller piece of the P&L than you expect.
Okay.
Um the tooling's not that expensive, and our factories at this point cover it. So a lot of it's
Yeah.
just like
Nice.
internal hires, industrial design, prototyping. Definitely looking to add more retailers and partners, and then we aren't international yet, and we don't have brick and mortar. So
Well, you haven't even done international yet?
nope, fully US. So we
Oh,
still have a
wow.
lot of growth and channel expansion, and thinking about like markets. We have an interesting category where there's a bunch of big conglomerates, but there haven't been a lot of acquisitions, and so it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. I can share. I think a lot of the legacy brands have been struggling in the kind of D2C world and
Yeah.
digitally focused world. A lot of the older brands, maybe our parents grew up with, are struggling to keep shelf space, and so I think across a lot of categories, you're going to see a ton of consolidation over the next few years. But what I'm particularly seeing is like the best businesses are getting those opportunities. I think there's a lot of like solid or, businesses keeping their head above water where maybe the best path is to like hold and, just focus on profitability.
Yeah, it's I was doing some research before we started chatting. Like is it like is it like William Sonoma is like the big giant gorilla in the room, or like who are like the sort of incumbents that you guys are disrupting that might be interested in like this space from an M&A perspective?
Yeah, Williams Sonoma's one. I mean, there's Helena Troy, Mayer Group, Newell, Group
Okay.
Seb, a ton of kind of those multi conglomerates. I think what's really cool about Caraway, and you talked about TAM a little bit earlier, is I do look at our business as having an infinite TAM. There's really two angles the brand can go and flex into. One, anything revolving around like a non toxic and clean lifestyle. Pick your category. I
Yeah.
think we've got room to go into over time. And then two, the home and kitchen are such a big space. So, I think Williams Sonoma is a great example of like a multi-product kitchen brand, but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of ways that this brand can go. I could be a holding company for multiple home brands. And so, really exciting to see. And I think PE in particular is like a great avenue for this category. A lot of those shops want to kind of build a platform around a brand, and
Yeah.
I think we'll see a lot more PE transactions over the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think partially because those markets, like you said, they're so big. They're literally like tens and tens of billions of dollars. Like I think of like Shark Ninja as like an example of kind of like what you're talking about. Like those guys, like for like whatever reason, have launched everything. Like you can buy a microwave and like a red light like laser mask, and like somehow it like works for them. Like I don't truly get it. It would make more sense for me for like a real brand like Caraway. Like I don't know that like Shark Ninja is like much of a brand as much as it is like this is like a high quality like cheap product, you know? So I could definitely see you guys kind of like moving into other parts of the home. Is there anything that you're like excited about from that perspective? Like I know you guys have done like some recent product stuff with like the containers and all that, but like is there anything that's like you're really stoked about?
Yeah, I can't share what we've got. Probably our two biggest launches since
Okay.
we launched the brand coming next year that are um, maybe a bit unexpected, but I think like to describe it, I feel like the center of gravity of the brand is really shifting from cookware into full kitchen and home. And we've got another one or two products that we think can be our second and third hero categories for the brand. So
Okay.
those will be fun to launch. And also products that I would say enable us to go into like new retail partners that the current brand today doesn't make sense in or wouldn't fit in.
Interesting. Okay. Would you ever do like a store?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. I
Be
think
kind
at
of
some
cool.
point, yes, we're really focused on partnering with retailers right now. It's lower cost of capital to
Yeah, yeah.
go in. Um, I think there's a huge opportunity for stores. You have Williams Sonoma and Sur La Table, and that's essentially
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
It'd be like
but
experiential. Like you could have like some influencer chef or
for
something
sure,
like
yeah.
come and yeah, yeah.
So it's more of a when question, and I
Okay.
think we tie everything back to the product portfolio. So we also like don't want to launch anything after we do a store that would change the footprint. So there are a few things coming that I think once they're in market will make sense to like build a store around.
There is like such like an unlimited amount of stuff that you could do. um okay, I know we're coming up on time here, so I just want to ask like one or two more questions sort of around like the evolution of being like a CEO, right? So you're founder CEO, still CEO, have gone from 0 to 1, 1 to whatever. Um do you see yourself, will you be CEO for as long as you are with Caraway?
Yeah. I see myself doing this for a long time. I love it. There's just so much growth ahead. I feel like we're super early, and um I feel like as long as we're like building an exciting product roadmap, I get excited. So, it's been fun to lead it, been hard being a single founder, but we built an incredible team over the years, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else I would do. So,
So if you're a solo founder and you've raised basically like one real round, do you have a board? Is it just you and the investor, or like?
yeah, it's myself, another member, and our core investor.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
So pretty light structure.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, usually at like your stage, it's like some big hodgepodge of 7 people who all think that they're like an expert and um cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us. I wanna let you tell the audience sort of like where to find you. I know you've been posting on LinkedIn and stuff. Is there anything else? Where can we find you? Just LinkedIn, Jordan Nathan, or what else are you? Where else are you?
Yeah, you can find me personally on LinkedIn. Check us out at carawayhome.com. We're on Amazon, Target, Crate and Barrel.
Buy some
Uh,
pans. We
a
should put
lot of
like a UTM on this podcast and then use code Drew for 10% off.
Let's do it.
No, I'm just kidding. Cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for Jordan Nathan, everybody.